thank you so much for coming out this evening. These events can be very exciting, and so we would just ask that you stay checked in to the event, and you can actually use your telephone for all of your audio needs. And there's also a visual component that you can go through where you can actually look at what we're talking about on the screen. For example, Ryan has put tonight's agenda up on the screen, and you can sort down through that and see what's on our agenda. And so there is that audio and visual component that you can use in order to participate in tonight's meetings. There'll be times when we're going to break into small groups, and we'll have you guys be able to have those small group discussions, and then there'll be times when we bring it back to the whole, because we never want to have a small group discussion without talking about what came out of those small groups. But really, why are we here? And so I would ask you to either check out the agenda that came via email if you're not following along on the screen. If you are following along on the screen, just scroll down to where it says the purpose and outcomes. Why are we doing this? And so this is a series of 4 meetings. The first 3 meetings are where we do a lot of the planning, and then that 4th meeting we actually unveil the final plan that you've helped Georgia Bikes create. And so the purpose of all of those meetings together is to gain a broader understanding of opportunities, barriers, expertise, and partnerships needed to grow cycling across Georgia, to energize the leadership, key stakeholders, partners, and community members like you as a whole around an inspiring vision of what Georgia Bike's potential is, and to gain consensus on the future of Georgia Bikes by making a concrete action plan and a roadmap for basically 3 to 5 years of strategic change. And so the concept is that you guys get to participate in that process. We are awesomely blessed to get your wisdom that you bring to the table. And so the more that you're checked into each of the meetings, the more we get to hear from you. You can really craft a strategy that's going to do its best to represent all Georgians when we're done with that final product. So I'll talk a little bit more at the end of the meeting about what happens after tonight. But there was the full 4-meeting agenda that did go out to you via email, so hopefully that helps to provide a context of what we're doing. And for tonight, we really want to dig deep with you and get to know your thoughts around what Georgia Bikes is doing well, things that they may want to be focusing on, what's that magic bullet thing that's going to help them really transform cycling in Georgia, and even maybe some discussion around what needs to come out of a strategic plan for Georgia Bikes. And so what we're going to do is give you guys an opportunity to break into a couple small groups. You'll get to answer some questions with each other, and then we'll debrief those introductions. So you'll get an opportunity to really get to know people at a small group level and a more intimate level, and to really talk about the future of Georgia Bikes and what that might look like. All of you are going to be bringing different perspectives to the table, and so you know, if you're not that familiar with Georgia Bikes and this is your first check-in, then you're welcome to just really look at it as cycling in your community or cycling within Georgia as a whole, and kind of just get that feedback and really jump into that process. So I'd like to get us started on our first activity. Before I do, let me just see if there are quickly any questions that anyone has. And so one of the things that you can do on your telephone is you can press the number 1 on your telephone, and that'll raise your hand so that we'll see it in a number 1 position. So if you've got a question that you need to ask before we get started with our activity for this evening, then press 1 on your phone, and we'll do our best to get that addressed. And let me tell you how we're going to do that. There's a guy on the phone with us tonight. His name is Ryan. Ryan is one of the people that work at my firm, S&G Endeavors. And Ryan's running our board for us this evening. So Ryan is usually one that will provide you with help if you're having any technical issues or anything like that. Ryan, do we have any number ones raised with any questions before we get started?
Nope, no number ones.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and dive right in then. So what we're going to do now, if you follow along on your screen, Ryan is going to replace the text that's on your screen with some new text, and it is questions that we would first just like you guys to. What we're going to do is break you into small groups, and we'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself using these questions. Before I explain it, I'm going to give Ryan a second just to get the text with the questions up there, and to also break you into small groups. What we'll do is we'll just do random groups. It'll probably be 3 or 4 people. And so Ryan's going to break you into those small groups, and if you're following along on the screen, you'll actually be able to see that happen, I believe. Ryan needs to make sure that they can see people, and I think that'll work. So you should be able to actually see that happen. So Ryan's going to move you into your small groups, and he's going to put you on what's called Breakout Mic, so you'll be able to hear everybody else in your small group, and then he'll get the text up there, and when he's ready to go with that, he'll let us know. And then I'll go through the instructions for the questions that we'd like you to answer. So Ryan, you go ahead and let us know when we're ready, and then we'll go. Just ask for your patience, folks, while we get that all up for you.
We're all good. Everyone's in breakout groups.
All right, Ryan, how many groups do we have?
We have 3 groups, 2 groups of 4 and 1 group of 3.
All right, excellent. So you should be able to see if you're following on the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the questions that we'd like you to talk about. So I'm going to read this handout. If you want to just follow along with me on the screen, that'd be great. We want you to take a couple minutes to really think about how would you use these questions as a way to answer or introduce yourself to the people in your small group. And so the questions that we've given you are, who am I? What do I do? The reasons that I care about Georgia bikes, or you can always replace that with cycling in Georgia, is. Number 2, as I think about Georgia bikes or cycling in Georgia, over the past year, these are some of the accomplishments that make me proud. What I've done to contribute to those accomplishments is. Number 3, as I think about Georgia bikes or cycling in Georgia over the past years, these are concerns that I have. Number 4, if I had a magic wand that could help Georgia bikes significantly grow cycling in Georgia, I would. And number 5, what we need to accomplish together over the next 3 to 5 years as Georgia bikes to both ensure we succeed and make it worth my time is. And so there's 5 questions there. When we give the bell, what I want you to do is just take a couple seconds to really think about those questions, maybe say hello to the people who are in your group. But then I want each of you to take 4 minutes apiece, and make sure you choose a timekeeper to help you stay on track, but take 4 minutes apiece and answer all 5 of those questions. And then when we're done with that, we've got another activity that we're going to have you do that'll help you kind of bring what you guys talked about and what you heard in your stories that you were telling each other out to that larger group. But for now, I'm going to have Ryan sound the bell, and we want you to really focus on trying to see the world through each other's eyes. Each person's story is their truth. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and sound that bell? And if anybody needs help, just put your hand at a 4 by pressing the 4 button on your phone, and we'll be there to help you shortly.
You are now in a breakout. Please begin.
Dissolved your breakout groups. What great discussions you've had. Now we've got to report back on those. Bruce, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And what about you, Neil?
Yes.
Okay, and Jim.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well, I want to thank Bruce, Neil, and Jim for volunteering to be our speakers. All of us are in the main room now, so if you kind of think about it as we broke you into tables, now we've brought you all back to the circle, or for some of you who may be walking during this meeting, maybe we're all just walking down the sidewalk with you and having a great conversation. So let's debrief what came out of our conversation. So Jim, I found where you were writing, and it means I'm sorry, Bruce, excuse me. I found where you were writing, and so it means you guys were answering a little bit different questions than the other two groups. So we'll just do our best to work through it.
I'm trying to cut and paste to the other document there.
Oh, you're fine. I was going to have my assistant do that anyway. So, let's focus on reporting this back to the larger group. So, Neil, why don't you tell me one thing that your group had in common?
The one thing we had in common was the need for education.
Okay, and Jen, what was one thing your group had in common?
We all talked about the need for getting legislation passed, like the 3-foot law, but maybe extending that to a vulnerable road user law. So action at the state legislative level.
And Bruce, a commonality from your group?
We all love bikes. We all love bicycling lifestyle. We all think that education is critically important and that infrastructure improvement and commitment from the legislature to do so is going to be the most significant thing to make bicycling safer for folks in Georgia.
All right. Neil, give me a couple more commonalities from your group.
We talked about the need for an infrastructure, and we also agreed on funding.
Yeah, the need for funding?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. We were actually just having a funding conversation in one of the groups where, I was explaining that part of this process is to really think about, what can we do with the Georgia Bike strategy that really helps to even diversify those funding streams for the organization. I know that's something that they're really interested in exploring. So, Jim, a couple more commonalities from your group?
We talked about the need for Georgia Bikes to reach out to more cyclists and different types of cyclists, particularly those that are using their bicycle out of necessity for transportation. And we also talked about education and specifically about educating law enforcement and transportation officials.
Yeah, especially, I think that was one of the things that really made Georgia Bikes want to even start looking at doing planning using this process, is so that they can reach out to more cyclists and try to do it across the state. So if each of you were to bring 1 or 2 people back with you to meeting 2, just think of the voices who would be in the room with that. And people are still welcome. If they weren't able to make it here for meeting 1, there will be a recap and they can come back and participate. But I know that that's definitely something the organization is committed to. Bruce, any other commonalities from your group that we haven't covered yet?
We all agree that education is critical and that law enforcement could certainly benefit from being exposed to more training on what the rights are for cyclists. We also all agreed that bike safety should be an integral part of driver's education and a mandatory part of driver's education, and start getting to emerging drivers when they're kids, getting them very comfortable with the idea of having to be aware of bicyclists and having to respect their rights from an early age. That maybe that will help just foster safer roads.
Okay. Neil, any burning...
We all were kind of unanimous that all the laws in the world won't necessarily make the roads safe compared to putting in the right kind of bike facilities with infrastructure, because like we talked about, or maybe this may just be me doing too much talking, there are laws against drunk driving, there are laws against texting and driving, there are laws against crossing the center line, and none of that stopped some lady from doing all those things yesterday and killing somebody in Athens and seriously injuring some other people. But, you know, proper, safe bicycle facilities and infrastructure might have saved them, you know, so.
It is, and I think you'll even see that when we unveil that draft strategic plan, that there's some stuff in the strategy that has to be, you know, more educational, some about encouragement, but also some about advocating and really creating either policy change or infrastructure change that needs to happen as well. So excellent feedback. Let me just quickly check in. Neil, any burning common themes that you haven't shared yet?
No. Other people have kind of said the same thing that we may not have emphasized, but everything else that's been said we agree with.
Excellent. And Jim, anything from your group before I move on to the next one?
No, we're good.
Okay, unique differences. So we look at common themes. What do our stories have in common with each other? Because that's how we're able to figure out the things that are really easy to start working on. But everybody brings unique perspectives. Everybody brings unique desires. So Jim, what was one thing that was unique to one or two people in your group?
Well, we mentioned the need for more bike infrastructure to make cycling safe for all, and you know, to go beyond the painted bike lane or the 4-foot or 4-inch stripe that separates motorists and vehicles to dedicated bike lanes that are protected from traffic. So that's what it's going to take to really get the people that are afraid to cycle to get on their bikes.
Mm-hmm. Neil, one thing that was unique from one person or so in your group?
Well, in our group we had two people that were, we had a local club cycling president and an advocacy group leader. Those two were kind of the same, and then we had a regional transportation person and a cycling coach. So we had two people that kind of came from one side of the street and two other people that came from different sides of the street. So,
oh, I bet you guys had a great conversation as a result of that, too. Awesome stuff. Okay, good. Bruce, talk to us about a couple unique things that maybe one person only talked about in your group.
Well, we had the distinct pleasure of having a person from the state of Alabama on the call who is envious of all of the things that we do have here in Georgia. So, kind of put things in perspective that we're not completely doing a terrible job of making bicycling safer for folks. She actually pointed out how she loves coming over here for Atlanta Streets Alive Festival and just the great energy that we have when we shut down the streets to traffic, and she brings as many folks and encourages folks to come from Birmingham and other parts of Alabama to it. So that was a unique perspective. We also had, the engineer, the DOT person on the call, as well as someone affiliated with the DeKalb schools. So in terms of their orientations, I think the unique perspectives are really helpful. My end of it, of course, is I see injured folks all the time, and I really see what happens with the uneven law enforcement that we get. Uneven is a kind word for it, but just the way that the laws either aren't enforced or aren't consistently enforced, and the bias that exists in law enforcement.
And I think that's what I actually love about looking at what do we have in common, what do we have in the unique side, because you really do get to make sure you're building a whole picture. And so what we then go back and ask ourselves is, okay, based on what we have in common and what's unique to one or two of us in our groups, now what do we need to accomplish? And I don't know if you guys have ever popped popcorn on the stove, but it starts really slow and then it gets faster and faster and faster. So to my three spokespeople, be ready, because what we're going to do is we're going to go through your last question with what do we need to accomplish, and we're just going to quickly do rounds back and forth and have you guys pop out one of those things at a time with excitement. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
I don't know.
You can do it. All right, let's be ready. We are going to start with Neil. Neil, give us one thing that your group wants to accomplish.
We want more education for the road users, including the motorists and the cyclists.
Jim.
So we want to grow the membership of Georgia Bikes. Not just individual members, but getting dues from clubs, businesses that benefit from cycling, and also corporate sponsors.
And Bruce, give us one from yours. What do you want to accomplish?
Legislative outreach. We need to get laws on the books that better protect cyclists. We need to clear up some ambiguity that exists in current laws to make police and law enforcement jobs easier.
Neil, one more.
Well, I got one that's close to that. The second one of ours was educate enforcement officers on the rights of bicyclists.
All right. Jim, give us another one.
To improve the financial stability of Georgia Bikes.
All right. Neil, give me another one.
Okay, the last one we had was educate people that are responsible for designing, building, and maintaining roads and city infrastructure.
Bruce, one more.
Get funding for public safety announcements. Billboards, TV ads, radio.
Sorry about that, Bruce. Jim, one more from you.
Yeah, we need to come up with a strategic plan for the organization, which is kind of the purpose of these meetings.
I love when that happens, Jim. Bruce, another one from yours, or are you done?
No. Vulnerable road user laws.
Okay. And Neil, I think you said you were done. Jim, you got any more on yours?
Yeah, our last one was to just remember why we got into cycling in the first place and enjoy the journey.
Oh, how awesome. And Bruce, you got any more on yours?
Yeah, so along the lines of what we said, I'd love to convince these bike organizers to follow Paul's lead and donate some portion of the money that they raise at these events to Georgia Bikes.
Nice. All right, folks, if you are able to, Ryan, what I'm going to have you do is take everybody that is on mute off mute so that everyone is on public. So everybody, your line is now going to be unmuted. So if you're in a spot that's really noisy, you may want to put your phone on mute yourself. But we want to make this kind of an open forum checkout. And you guys have had a lot of great conversation. Ryan, let's go ahead and get everybody on public. Let us know when that happens. And when it does, then we're going to give a big round of applause to these three for doing the speaking out this evening. So,
everyone's public.
All right, let's give these guys a huge round of applause for their efforts this evening, if you guys have the ability to do that.
Yay.
And sometimes you just got to do it to see what it's going to work out like. Listen, this has been a really great discussion, but this is only discussion number one. So what I'm going to have Ryan do is we don't want to lose the work that you guys have done. So he's going to paste in this, what we call the summary agenda. You guys would have gotten it via email. Ryan, it's page 2 of that internal document you and I are using. And it highlights kind of what the 4 different meetings are. And so I just quickly want to go through that, and then I want to give each of you just an opportunity to say some parting words before we sign out tonight. So there's a good chance we could get out of here just a little bit early. On September 27th, we're going to come back. We're going to present you guys with a draft strategic framework for Georgia Bikes that'll have mission, vision, guiding principles, goals. You guys will get the opportunity to really get deep into that document, giving us feedback. We'll also have an opportunity for you to hear from 3 panelists that have really given some thought to where the organization could go, and kind of use all of that discussion to build on what you guys have talked about tonight to really start thinking big for the organization. Now, there'll be a lot of feedback that comes back on the strategic framework from you guys, and so we'll have that so that you can vote on it and help us prioritize that, and then we'll bring you a revised final copy of the strategic framework on October 11th, where you'll actually get to see how your feedback made it into that document. And we'll build off of the consensus that we have on that document to then get into action planning. What we do is you guys, because you're helping us create the strategic framework for the organization, you also are very instrumental in giving us ideas for action. Not just what do we want to do, but how are we going to get it done? And so you guys get to participate in that. Of course, every time we do a bunch of planning, there's a lot of voting that happens, so you'll get an opportunity to vote. The board will actually do some discussion of this, and they're going to actually present some of what you guys have come up with at their actual Georgia Bike Summit in mid-October. And then October 25th, you definitely want to come back for that meeting. It actually tends to be a lot shorter than what it's scoped to be, but it gives you guys the opportunity to actually see how the final product ended up. And it's a really amazing feeling to know that you guys helped to produce that final product. Again, if you know someone who should have been here tonight, maybe they weren't here, go bring them next time. Invite them to come. Get them the link to register. I think it's really important. The more people that we can engage in this conversation, the more that we can do things like tap into new cyclists or people who may not even identify as cyclists today. So you guys have really done a great job of giving feedback. I want to give you an opportunity just to kind of say hello and check out with the group. And so I'm going to go down through the list of participants that we had signed on. Ryan, just make sure I don't miss any. And remember, you may need to unmute your phone. We've done the unmuting in the system for you, but if you've still got your phone muted, you may need to unmute it. We're going to have you guys check out either telling us one thing you're taking from tonight's meeting or one thing that excites you about when we come back on September 27th for our next meeting. So we're going to start with Amy. Amy, if you don't mind being first, and then I'll go to Jim. Amy?
No, I don't mind. My name is Amy Martin, and I'm a regional planner with the Southern Georgia Regional Commission. And I really enjoyed everything I heard tonight and the different perspectives from, cycling coaches and people from different, jobs. Just the different perspectives was really good for me to hear and to take back when we discussed different modes of transportation and all with our policymakers and stakeholders. So it's just good to get that information from the actual advocacy groups or people that participate.
Well, and I think, Amy, your perspective becomes really critical when we start moving into meeting 2 and meeting 3, and you being able to kind of help them craft a strategy that's going to help the planners as well across the state. So glad that you're here this evening. We're going to go to Jim, and then Bruce, you'll be next. So Jim.
Which one? Which Jim?
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. Jim L. We'll start with you, and then we'll go to the other Jim next. So Jim L. first.
Okay, well, I'm on the board of Georgia Bikes, and so I'm really excited to get some input and feedback from a lot of different individuals and maybe some future board members.
I love it, Jim. Thank you so much. I didn't have my cheat sheet with the last name, so sorry about that. Now we'll go to the other Jim, and then I'll be coming over to you, Bruce.
Yeah, this is Jim Potter down in, I'm president of Canada Cycling Club. Georgia Bikes has been very helpful to us over the years, and we're excited about seeing a strategic plan come together that so we can look similar to the Atlantas and the Carrolltons and the Columbuses and try to get some infrastructure and cooperation down in this part of the state. It's an exciting task, and I think there's a lot that can happen from it and that could benefit the whole state, and that's what I'm excited about.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And like I said, and like I'll keep saying, definitely make sure you guys are coming back for the rest of the conversation, because I think the perspectives you guys are bringing are just so amazing. We're going to go to Bruce next, and then Tracy.
This is Bruce Hagan with Bike Law in Decatur, and I'm relatively new to all this with Georgia Bikes, but I'm really excited to be part of it. We represent folks who are injured while they're on bikes, primarily due to things that drivers do in their cars. So I have a different perspective on things. But, you know, I've kind of been mentored by Ken Roscoff in this, and we're committed to trying to do everything that we possibly can to give back to those groups, particularly like Georgia Bikes and Atlanta Bicycle Coalition being another one, that are doing everything they can to try to make cycling safer for everybody. And I think this was a great discussion, and it's so nice to hear everybody else's perspective on things. And one of the ladies in our group just put it in such beautiful perspective when she described her vision for a world where everybody can just be safe on their bikes and enjoying a healthy existence that's not polluting, and you know, our kids can be happy and safe riding and walking and getting out of their cars, and it just sounded so nice. So you know, she described it as utopian. This is Yolanda Brown I'm talking about. She described it as utopian, but I think it can be a real vision, and I want to be part of doing what we can to make that happen in Georgia.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We're going to go over to Tracy, and then I'll be coming to you, Caitlin. Hopefully you're still with us. Tracy, go ahead.
Hello, Jeremy and the gang. This is Tracy, and I am with Alabike over in Alabama. Our group had such a terrific time waving the magic wand with Yolanda, just talking about what the visions of tomorrow would look like. One of our other mates on the phone was actually walking, so we really felt like we were touching all the senses as we were imagining what the world could be like tomorrow. In fact, we all had such a great time chatting and thinking about where our commonalities are that we're planning on meeting up at the Georgia Bike Summit in Jekyll Island. I believe it's the end of October, so if you haven't thrown the dart and red marked that weekend in your calendar, consider coming and meeting us all down there. Thanks, Jeremy.
Awesome, Tracy, and great to have you here. And I appreciate you putting the plug in for the summit. So now we don't, and you can find more information about their summit at georgiabikes.org. And so excellent. Caitlin, are you still with us?
I believe so. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can. So we'll go to Caitlin for her to check out, and then I'll go to Yolanda. Go ahead, Caitlin.
Okay. I'm Caitlin DeJoya. I work with the Georgia Department of Transportation as the State Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator and the Safe Routes to School Coordinator. And I'm really excited about seeing the draft strategic plan. I'm excited about how we can get into writing how all these different partners that Georgia Bikes have can contribute to the work and contribute to the vision, and just really, you know, rallying around Georgia Bikes and increasing the capacity of Georgia Bikes through all our efforts too.
Awesome, Caitlin. Well, thank you so much. And like I said, that is going to be the next meeting when we'll get into that strategic plan, and you guys will get kind of the way that we do it from here on out is you guys have discussion, you give a lot of feedback, we vote on it, we prioritize it, and the goal is to get into a situation where you've got action teams at the end that are able to support all that action that needs to take place. So Georgia Bikes, you know, is able to move that forward with more people engaged and expanding that network. So fantastic. We're going to go to Yolanda next and then to Doug.
All right. I'm Yolanda Brown. I work for the Gap School District. I'm a senior project manager. I'm just really excited to know that there are programs out there from GDOT or even from the law with Bruce having like a booklet, something that I can actually use as a resource and possibly share back with the district in the way of maybe engaging some of the other people in trying to incorporate I guess, more of a bike-friendly environment for our students. And now I'm really excited. I think I'm going to try my best to get down to Jekyll to see if I can sign up for some of the workshops so that I can increase my knowledge and, of course, share that back with the community.
You know, what's really neat is having you guys and others in this process, Yolanda. I would be very interested in figuring out a way that you guys can almost participate in that unveiling process around the new strategic plan for Georgia Bikes, and even show that, you know, you guys took the time to have some of those conversations in advance that are going to make it a stronger plan. And so that's even something to think about. But I love that you're going to the summit, and so good stuff. Let's move to Doug if you're still with us, and then I'm going to be coming to Ethel if we still have Ethel. Doug?
Hi, Doug Job here. I'm encouraged by how strong Georgia Bikes already is, and I look forward to a stronger organization and presence. I think in large part it's because of our diversity and our passion, and I'm grateful to you all. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, and I've got Ethel, Pat, and Paul. So Ethel.
She's gone, Jeremy.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. My list hasn't updated. Pat or Paul? Pat?
Yeah, this is Pat McHenry in Columbus. Looking forward to strengthening Georgia Bike's legislative agenda.
Oh, you can guarantee that's got to be part of the strategy, too. Excellent. All right, and do we still have Paul with us, Ryan?
I'm here.
Yep, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, Paul Jones, director of the Tony Serrano Century. Just want to say I'm rather grateful for Georgia Bikes. Georgia Bikes came along at a time when we were raising money for cycling safety and didn't really know how to best spend it. And Georgia Bikes has given us incredible bang for our buck in doing things to make cycling safer in the legislative and the educational end. I was real happy to hear in our comments that came up tonight a few items that I had been started on a few years ago and sort of fell by the wayside, and I think maybe they're going to get picked back up again, particularly the membership-driven thing and working on strategic funding, which is absolutely necessary for the long-term continuation of Georgia Bikes. So very good to see some familiar names and some new names on here. Thank you so much for putting this together, Jeremy.
No problem. So I have done, I would say in my career, I think I've worked with 52 different bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organizations. And whether you do this virtually or you do this in person, it's always great to see the different cyclists that come to the table, the different pedestrians that come to the table, and like I said, even people who don't necessarily identify as biking or walking in any way. And just watching you guys have this conversation and get it started, I think it's totally awesome. And thank you so much for participating tonight. We're going to get you out of here a little bit early tonight. All I ask of you is when I send you the follow-up email that has the recap of it, send it to a friend, invite them, and let's bring even more people into this conversation. Does anybody have anything else before we break for tonight's meeting?
Jeremy, we had a few more people to check out still.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking at the updated list. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and call through those real quick?
Sure. Neil, why don't you check out for us? And then Sherry.
Okay, this is Neil Fleming. I live in Sandy Springs. I'm an insurance agent, cycling coach, and have been a league cycling instructor for the League of American Bicyclists for a while. And I'm glad to know a little bit more about Georgia Bikes and having somebody else in the state of Georgia that's promoting bicycling advocacy. I guess my vision is I've always wanted to get more people involved in cycling, and I'd love to see Georgia get to be like more some of the European countries like Denmark and maybe we get to the point where Save the Streets or the Save the Streets is where we close the streets to bicyclists so cars can get around because we've got so many cyclists.
Mm-hmm. All right, excellent. So we're going to go over to Sherry next, and then who are we going to, Ryan?
And then Nathan's going to close us out.
All right, so Sherry, then Nathan. I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't see the three of you on the bottom.
I'm Sherry. I'm from Milledgeville, and I am trying to get more involved instead of letting my bicycle club do it for me.
That's awesome, Sherry. Well, we are glad that you are here. Was it a good experience for you?
It was.
Okay, excellent. Well, excellent. Well, we look forward to you coming back for the next one and to really lending your voice to that conversation. And we're going to go for our last one, Ryan.
Nathan.
Nathan, go ahead and check out for us, Nathan.
Hi, yeah, I'm a commuter, and I'm with a member with Roswell Bicycle, Roswell Bike, and or Bike Roswell, sorry. And I kind of joined on a little late, but I'm looking forward to coming to some of the future meetings and hopefully being able to get on time and hear the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to some of the next ones.
All right, excellent. Ryan, thank you so much for running the board for us and making sure that I didn't miss those two. Thank you all so much for being here. And again, that challenge, bring someone new with you. If you like, don't feel that you can't come back if you don't have someone new with you. We definitely want to have your voice part of this conversation. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the 27th when we hear from 3 outstanding panelists. And we will also be talking about the strategic plan for the organization. So this concludes tonight's call. If you want to stick around for the debrief, you're more than welcome. Don't feel you have to. We just welcome anybody who wants to do that. Thanks a lot, and it concludes today's call.